Hi everyone, welcome to my video. Today I am building a small half-round corner cabinet for a bathroom. This cabinet will eventually hold a sink, but that is for later. First I have to make this and install it, and then we're gonna place the sink. I walk you through the process step by step so you can build one too. First, let's talk about the basics. For a round cabinet I use ribs, just like building a boat. To get a solid round surface I used a 7mm thick flexible multiplex, which is easy to bend. Now to make these vertical bars I just cut a whole lot of strips on my bandsaw, run them through my planer thicknesser to make them all even, and then it was time to add them on my cabinet. I do this with some nails, glue, and temporarily clamping them on there. I start from the center and work from the inside towards one way, and I did the exact same thing towards the other way, so they're all nicely spaced out even. For the back panel I used veneer MDF. Now it feels already like a really sturdy cabinet. So with the last vertical strip I waited until this moment because I wanted to have the exact same width that I needed for the last strip, because then it fits nicely against the wall, because remember this thing will be hanging on the wall in the end. To make the top it's a little bit different because the top is exposed and the bottom unexposed because that is inside the cabinet. So to match that curve I clamped a ruler on the cabinet and use that as a guide for my compression bit on my router table. And in the end it worked perfectly fine. The only thing that I had to do by hand was the last bit where my clamp was placed. Now it's time to cut out the doors, and that is basically quite tricky. I did that with a plunge saw. Here I'm cutting away a little bit of the walnut strip, and that will make sense later in the project. But using a plunge saw for this kind of operations is super easy, and I just didn't cut it all the way through. The last bit I did with a Japanese spell saw. I had more control when the door was free in there, so it doesn't fall in my saw blade. Now installing the hinges with this Krach hinge jig is super easy. I used hinges from Blum. I will put a link in the description below. And remember, if you're gonna install hinges like this, you need to buy the 3mm plate. So not the 0mm plate, but the 3mm plate, because then your door will be flush on the outside. So I'll put a link in the description below of the products that I use for this cabinet. I explained to you that I cut away a little bit of the walnut strip, and that is because I want to cover up the side of the door and the side of the inside of the cabinet, so you don't see the ribs and the multiplex. And yeah, so to cover it up I glued on a solid piece of walnut from around 3mm, which I cut it away with my plunger when I cut it out the door. So now the bars are all still the same, but when you're gonna open up the door it is nicely covered up. So to flush trim those strips, when everything was dried up I used just a block plane, and I had to fit that door in there. So I covered up the inside of the ribs with a solid black walnut strip, which I cut it on the bandsaw as well. Used CA glue to glue them in there. 10 seconds it's dry, super easy. And then you won't see all those nails that I used to clamp my vertical bars on the door. For the finish I used Osmo 3028, which is a very great finish. You can add 2-3 layers sanding in between, but remember, just take your time slowly so it can really go in that small grains, and then buff it off. And that was my video. Short, hopefully you find it useful, you learned something. So please, a little bit of interaction would be very, very appreciated. So if you have any questions, leave them below. If you like this video, thumbs up. And if you didn't subscribe yet, consider subscribe to my really great channel, and hopefully I see you in the next video.